In the summer of 2009, the Northern Ireland Executive Minister for Social Development, Margaret Ritchie, began a series of public forum roadshow events throughout Northern Ireland to learn the public's views on creating a shared future. This policy has been stuck within the Northern Ireland Executive itself for several years, with political leaders yet failing to reach a consensus on the way forward. In an exclusive interview for the Northern Ireland Foundation, Margaret Ritchie describes her own motivations for a shared future, from both her political perspective as well as from her duties as an executive minister.
Minister, thank you very much for your time.
Delighted.
Thank you. I appreciate your willingness to talk further about a shared better future in Northern Ireland.
Yes.
First question I have for you is, so why do you endorse a policy of a shared and better future?
Well, first of all, it comes from within myself, and secondly, it's to do with the work of this department, and also it's about my political vision. I firmly believe that for a better and a stronger north in terms of this island, you need to develop a shared society. And it's not something that happens overnight. We have to build that shared future, that normal society. And that's part of the remit of this department. And in many, many ways it's central to that. And I made that central to the whole new housing agenda. But you asked the very important question of why I do that. I do that simply because there is a compelling need to build on the political institutions. And with the end of violence, with guns being largely silent, we still have deeply divided communities, particularly in urban areas. And I examined the reasons for that. I found out that 8 out of every 10 people want to live together rather than live apart. But it still remains that we largely live apart, we largely are socialise apart. So we have been looking at ways to deal with that in this department.
Thank you. Are there personal experiences, good or bad, that motivates your work?
Well, I come from Downpatrick, and the central to the whole of Downpatrick is St Patrick himself, who predates our religious and our political divisions on this island. And Patrick, for me, is the epitome of a shared society. He's a unifying force. He belongs to everybody. There are those who would seek to colonise Patrick. Patrick, as far as we're concerned, is not for colonising. Patrick, in a very humble way, represents everybody. He is that unifying force of bringing people together.
What have you drawn from your recent public roadshow campaign? What insights have you learned?
Well, tonight I actually will be hosting the 12th in a series of those roadshows. Many, many ideas have come forward across the areas of housing, urban regeneration, shared spaces, community development, and also cultural expression. For example, in my own hometown of Downpatrick, somebody came forward with the idea of having a licensing system for flags. People may say that's a bit wayward, but it would be introducing a monitoring and enforcement system. But there are other areas where people are insistent that to develop that sense of sharing, to develop that sense of partnership, that sense of engagement, you need to start with people in the playground. You need to start with children so that they have a sense of interacting, working and playing together. And then in many ways, because children, when they're educated in different schools, never meet each other. So that the playground is the most common place, is the most shared space. Other areas that have come to the fore, and we are already working on this, in housing, how we'd put in a shared future into the allocation system, while still underpinning the principle of need, because people need social houses because they've been on the waiting list for a considerable time, and that without going down the route of social engineering, that's the best way to do it with a common selection scheme. For me, shall we say, urban regeneration and shared society is not about shiny new buildings. It's about the spaces that people can call neutral, that they can recreate in, they can socialise in, that they can congregate and come together to hold events.
As Minister responsible for social housing, what's your policy in regards to contentious flags and murals and gable walls?
has been a principal issue so far, in that some, shall we say, monuments have been erected in state in Fermanagh, and we had the Kilcooley case, where monuments have been erected in an area which was meant to be a memorial garden, and I felt that just simply eliminated the whole sense of a shared society. So currently we're undertaking negotiations and discussions with those who erected them to have them removed to another location, but not in a place where we're trying to build a shared community.
Right. Where else in the world have you seen good practice of social cohesion? What do you think are the appropriate lessons for Northern Ireland?
Well, social cohesion can be at different levels. I've seen it in terms of Dublin, where in the Dockland area, with mixed income, mixed tenure housing, and I've seen it in Harlem, and there in a place called Brown Square, and you have the migrant populations, you have the African Americans, and also people from the white population, all who congregate, who live together in new housing that simply complements the local architecture, and they do so in a very congenial way, having to, I suppose, respect political, having to respect religious difference, having mutual respect for each other, having that shared experience. And I think that's the way we have to go here in Northern Ireland, but we need to build that shared society, and we need to do it then on the whole island, because that's how we ensure that people won't end up at each other's throats again, or end up in communal violence.
What do you think is preventing the publication and consultation on the draft policy for cohesion, sharing and integration, and what do you think we need to do to break that logjam?
Well, that is a purely political issue. For example, and I make no bones about this, the two parties, with Sinn Féin, believe in separate but equal. The DUP simply believe in this carve-up, this thing of peaceful coexistence. For me, peaceful coexistence and separate but equal are not good enough. For even the term good relations simply perpetuates the divisions that already exist within society. So all those matters have to be addressed. But going back to that, they are not politically driven to want to publish this document. And in fact, at recent executive meetings, I put it under AOB, asking them when they were going to do it, and would they consider, if they find it a helpful suggestion. If I was to bring forward a paper, and they said they would reflect on it, and then I went back at the next meeting and asked, have you reflected on it? What is your thought now? And they said they were still reflecting on it. My simple attitude, I don't think they possess, or they are driven by the interest to develop a shared society. They simply believe in being separate, and this in a thing of peaceful coexistence. That's not a shared society. That doesn't develop engagement. It doesn't develop partnership. And I've also heard that they intend to bring forward maybe vehicles for regeneration. One in East Belfast, one in West Belfast. But there's no sense of cohesion there, no sense of coming together, no sense of understanding these issues. And for example, there's another area I mentioned earlier, and it requires examination. And it follows on from that area about separate but being equal. We provide grants to community groups, but in fact we're building up capacity within communities so that they can get at each other. So you're building up community capacity, which is simply perpetuating division. To me, there's something fundamentally wrong about that, and that needs to be totally looked at. So that I would like to bring that forward. Ideas, solutions, because it's not. We know what the problems are. They've been identified time after time, but we need to bring forward the solutions.
And finally, Minister, in the absence of government policy on a shared future, what can individuals do to realise this? And what would you do yourself politically to encourage this?
Well, first of all, it has to be driven politically, and if it's going to reflect a partnership arrangement, then there is a need and a great need and an urgency for the First and Deputy First Minister to publish the document on cohesion, sharing and integration. But in the absence of them doing that, I want to bring forward, based on the ideas that I have gathered through the various roadshows, proposals to address that particular issue. But I would encourage groups, I would encourage community groups at all levels to work towards that fundamental idea of a shared society. And from a very political viewpoint, I think we need to develop a shared society in Northern Ireland, and you can do that through building a strong economy and building on the commonality, interests, mutual respect, and shall we say, respect for political and religious difference. And there is an urgency and there is a need for political parties to do that. And sadly, so far, with the two major parties, that has been lacking. But I think the community is far ahead of the politicians in this respect. You take the Life and Times survey of some 2 years ago, it said that 8 out of every 10 people in Northern Ireland wanted to live together rather than live apart. Using those statistics, using the fact that we know that people want to come together. For example, yesterday I was in Cooper's Court, the new housing development developed by Helm Housing Association down in the Cathedral Quarter. That is a shared future scheme in terms of respect for political, religious and racial difference.
Thank you very much, Minister.
No problem.